Welcome to Conversations with Aunt Elizabeth, the podcast inspired by my book, I'm a Registered Dietitian, Now What?, where I have the absolute joy to sit back, relax, and have a conversation about nutrition with a variety of people who share their personal story of passion and purpose, especially registered dietitians. Today's conversation is a little different. It's with Stephanie Brown. She's a licensed esthetician who has a private practice called Healthy Skin by Stephanie. She focuses on skin health from a whole body approach, especially the gut-skin connection. Please enjoy my conversation with Stephanie. I'm excited to talk to you because I think like my two passions are nutrition and skin.
Yeah. And I'm the skin and nutrition.
Yeah. So when we were chatting, and when I was having my facial, I was like, I need to talk to her more because I just love that we kind of share those similar interests.
The playing back and forth, and you can learn so much from each side, and they really work together.
They do. And I think I probably pay more attention to my skin as I've gotten older.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I've also paid attention to my overall health and my nutrition a lot more too, which I know that when we were talking, you had that same experience. But
yes.
Why don't you maybe take me back to when you were a young Stephanie?
Okay.
And when you were thinking about what you wanted to be when you grew up, how did you kind of get to this part of your life, and what was that journey?
Oh my gosh, and it was such a long wraparound before I got back to this, but I started out very passionate about dance. So I went to Drake for about 3.5 years, and I got really engrossed in the whole theater, fine arts, modern dance program. But then I thought, well, you need to have a real job too, something that you can fall back on, because as we know, the creative arts are typically not a very stable career to embark upon. And being in Des Moines, Iowa, and not in one of the bigger markets, I thought, what's my chance? So I ended up doing broadcast journalism. Dabbled a little bit in psychology, sociology. I went all the way around the map. I was a good student, but really my passion was in the arts at that time. And I, long story short, decided to leave Des Moines, where I grew up. My whole family is here, and they still are here, and moved all the way to Los Angeles. And I'd never really been there other than to visit briefly. That was a whole journey of 12 years being in. Then I got into acting and did a 2-year Meisner Conservatory, pursued TV, film, print. I started in dance, but then realized how competitive that market was, and they said, one of my agents, my dance agent, said, Stephanie, have you ever thought about maybe commercial work? That would be another way to supplement while you're bartending and doing everything else that you do while you audition and go to go-sees. And so I did that and worked quite a bit, but still didn't feel totally fulfilled. And then I went back and kind of thought to myself, what am I interested in? And I've always been interested in beauty and skin and all of that. So I went to aesthetic school, graduated there in Los Angeles, started working for somebody, and then at that point I kind of hit a crossroads in my mid-30s and thought, I think I want to move back home. My family kept trying to drag me back in, get out of la land and come back home. And so I did, and I started working for Heartland Plastic Surgery, and I did that for 10 years, and had the good news with that job is that I got into more of the medical aesthetics, and at that time I, with my licensure, could be certified in laser, which I think the laws have changed. So I was doing laser hair removal and vein removal and learning just way more of a medical side, working with a lot of medical grade skincare lines that were using topical prescriptions and things that now I'm not working with as much in my own skin studio. And then I did that for 10 years and took the huge scary leap and went out on my own. And I've been here in my own skin studio for just over 3 years.
That's a pretty crazy journey. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I was like, I'm trying to give you the cliff notes, but I mean, there was a lot. And I was in college, and I do remember just my counselor saying, Stephanie, you really need to declare a major. Like, I know you have a ton of interest here and you're a good student, but we need to hone it in. And so I do empathize with young people that are like, I just don't know what my niche is. I don't know what my passion is yet. I'm interested in a lot of things. And I didn't really realize, even when I went to aesthetic school, as sort of my B plan for, making it in the acting industry, which is a whole other podcast.
We might have to do that.
Yeah, that's a whole other world. I learned a lot, grew a lot, being, a Midwestern girl in that environment and living in Hollywood, had its many, many challenges. But thank God for the Iowa born and bred, actually I wasn't born here, but pretty much raised here, and having that foundation of a Midwestern family that kind of kept me grounded enough.
Sure.
And so going to aesthetic school, I think, was kind of a means to making that transition. But then the further I delved into it and I just became super passionate. And then my own personal health journey is what led me to your field and being more interested as just somebody that isn't my expertise in researching and getting help from other professionals and, helping my own health situation, because I had many challenges.
Did you experience those challenges? Because I'm assuming life in LA was stressful.
Very.
And just super hard on your body and
yes.
your sleep schedule and all that type of stuff.
Everything got exacerbated that was already there. I mean, I've always been a fairly type A, high-strung person. I come from both sides. My mom and dad, they have gastrointestinal issues. IBS is what they diagnosed me with as a young person. And so being medicated for years with that, and then dealing with severe migraine headaches. Ooh. And that started to really affect me probably in my late 20s, early 30s is when it really peaked. And I mean, it was miserable. But what was interesting is it was typically with stressful times where my eating, my sleeping, what I was consuming, probably too much coffee and not enough water, keeping just ridiculous hours with no time to rejuvenate overnight with healthy sleep, still being in shape, because unfortunately in that world I was living in, everything was about your appearance and staying thin and staying fit. So even though I was going to the gym every day and maintaining a lean, healthy body, which I never had a weight issue, thank God, but it was embedded in me at such a young age with dance, and then moving into that field, is everything was based on, are you thin enough? Are you taking care of the exterior, but you're not really focusing on what you're putting in your body and how you're getting to that point? And then eventually your body just says, I'm done with this. This is, rebels. And Absolutely. Then you start to have all of these inflammatory conditions. I had skin rashes. I had acne for a period of time, which I'd never had before. Terrible anxiety, stress, depression. And then the stomach issue just was kind of an ongoing.
And it just probably got exacerbated to the point where you're like, I can't take this anymore.
And I mean, getting those migraine headaches, unfortunately, and you probably know this, is you have to go to an ER with severe migraine. You can't just go to a clinic and say, hey. And so I had been on every medication known to man, and eventually your body stops responding to that med. And then it was almost like taking the medication would make me more nauseous and sick. So then I'm dealing with that on top of the pain that wasn't subsiding. It was just a vicious cycle, and I was super frustrated. And when you don't feel good most of the time and you're trying to maintain that level of intensity, I mean, I think there were just moments where I just was like, I can't do it.
Sure.
And I just wanted to quit and leave and come home. And at one point I did. I just kind of came for an extended vacay and did a lot of rest and relaxation and, of course, eating better. But it develops a really unhealthy relationship with food is what it does. And I think so many of us, that's an issue. I mean, it's our society. It's really, it's kind of, it's sad, and I feel for our youth because they're dealing with so much of that, and a lot of the food that we eat today, and you know this is more your field, is just not very nutrient dense.
And that's, I think it's a very good point of just like showing how stressful, when your life is so stressful, you just run through the motions, but you're not really realizing the havoc it's wrecking on your body.
Totally.
And you kind of hit that point. That's okay. You kind of hit that point when you were, doing all the things and trying all the things. So when you decided to go back to school, I'm sure you were probably still working.
I was
doing all of that stuff too.
My lifestyle was it was nuts. I auditioned during the day, sometimes did my aesthetics, then went to aesthetics school at night, and then I had to be on the floor at the Hollywood nightclub to bartend by 10 p.m. at night.
Oh my gosh. When did you sleep?
I didn't.
You couldn't have.
I think I averaged maybe between 4 and 6 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And that is just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
to
crazy.
do that for so long. And yeah, I was young, but I mean, I think we forget how much you put your body through when you do that, because really sleep is so essential.
It is.
To everything, and even to skin health, I try to tell people. I mean, it's just the skin is it's your largest organ, and it is directly connected to every other system in your body, and it's complex, and they all have their own ecosystem of good and bad bacteria, but they all work together synergistically to help you to live and to function optimally.
Right. Did you kind of realize in your own personal journey with going back to school, doing skin, and then your own personal health, when did you start to make that connection with how your body was reacting to the food that you were consuming, and when did you start to kind of navigate that in your own personal space?
I think, once I came back to Des Moines and started working in a whole different, and just kind of created a whole new world, which was, that's
stressful.
Transition is that kind of a change it's stressful. It's hard. It was a hard adjustment for me. I think it's not until maybe the last couple of years, and this is brutally honest, that I've really accepted where I'm at and welcomed it again, even though I love my family and I've always been super close to all of them. You come back home and it's not the same as when you left. I mean,
sure.
Everything's changed, and I've changed, and I'm older now, and so that was hard, and my health was not getting a lot better. The migraines were the main issue, and the stomach situation, and I eventually just got sick of being sick and went to an acupuncturist and started that, and then she started to talk to me a lot more about my diet. And then I really started to think about it. I mean, I kind of knew this, but it's weird when it's yourself. You just kind of, whatever. I'm good, whatever. I'm underweight, I'm still at an okay weight. I work out, I'm fine. I'm young, whatever. You're invincible. And it wasn't until I started treating myself a little more naturally from a functional medicine approach, and I have nothing against MD or medical. I've got a family full of medical professionals, and I respect it greatly, and they're incredibly, talented, knowledgeable. But I really think I at that point needed the marriage of the two. Like, I needed to know certain things medically, but I wanted to try a different route, a different treatment. So I actually, it's weird, but I don't know if you're familiar with Rich Roll, but he is all about plant-based. And I read his autobiography and got super interested in more of a plant-based lifestyle. And I know a lot of people like to term it as, vegetarian or vegan. I am currently vegan and gluten-free. I started out cutting gluten. That was the first thing, and that's what was the main thing that curbed the headaches and the migraines immediately. Like within weeks. And I shouldn't say immediately, but I mean, that was a huge change. And then I started gradually getting away from meat and different things and realizing how I felt better. And I will admit, I got pretty radical the other direction there for a period of time where I was underweight. Because when you start cleaning out all that, and all that toxicity in your body, the weight just naturally kind of sheds. Well, I wasn't replenishing it fast enough and still exercising and kind of operating at the same level. And so that has been definitely something I've had to really
pay attention to.
And it's been a challenge for me. And I still work on it, and I still am always researching and trying to read things and learn from people like you and others about health, because I think when you are a type A person too, you tend to get really, like, I all of a sudden thought every food group was, the demon.
Yes.
You start to get kind of radical. And you have to kind of hone it back in. And I tend to be an all or nothing type of person. I dive in, I'm totally committed. And that's kind of why I love to have some kind of a regimen. I mean, and I tend to be very habitual in what I do and how I eat and live. And yes, it serves me well on many levels, but it's hard sometimes to be a little bit bendable,
Oh, sure.
And so for me, my challenge is eating out, because there's not a lot. I mean, even though we have better places, I tend to think, well, what are they cooking it in? What oil and seasoning are they using?
Right. You start to question it.
And so I became almost so aware, like almost too aware that, that can be a disservice too, because then it's hard to kind of let go when you do have to be social or travel. Traveling is always a huge one for me. In fact, I kind of avoided it because I'm like, well, how am I going to eat what I eat and when I eat it, and
to fit your scheduling and just what you feel
into what I
with.
think makes me feel decent. And if I eat that, is that going to make me feel terrible, or am I going to get a headache or a stomach issue?
Sure. Can you tell when you eat, like if you would, encounter something that you'd eat that you normally don't? Does your body react instantly for you? Yes.
It does. Yeah. And I think it's maybe because I've restricted so many of those things for so long. I mean, I gave up alcohol. I don't even drink wine. But most of the time, that would give me a headache. So it wasn't even that I drank too much. I never was a big drinker. But even having like a glass of wine for a social dinner date or something, it just felt terrible. It didn't matter what kind of wine. And the gluten I'm really adamant about gluten.
That's like a non-negotiable.
That's like a non-negotiable for me. And that scares me because there's so many things that they tell you are gluten-free and they're not. So I always, I don't buy things that are gluten-free in the box of the bag. I'm pretty much a whole food shopper. And it's hard. You do have to shop more frequently. But I would rather eat that way and feel better than eat the other. So
right. Well, and like we were talking about earlier, just everyone's so individual. So you have to be able to embrace what people do and how it makes them feel better.
Sure.
So, yes, there's people that'll be like, oh, she's crazy. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't go
a lot of
anywhere.
people think I'm just a nut job. and I just kind of I'm pretty self-deprecating. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am. But, it works for me.
You feel better. Yes.
I feel better.
Your quality of life is better.
I feel better. Yes. And not having to go to the ER with a terrible migraine where you can barely stand up and you're vomiting in a bag is, I don't want to do that anymore. Life's too short, I want to be happy and healthier. And now I'm just trying to get a little bit more relaxed, maybe is the right word. I'm trying to think of a better adjective for it. In being able to kind of integrate my way of eating, if you will, into social situations. And because you almost become phobic about it,
right
and then you develop anxiety over, oh my gosh, I can't eat what I want to eat, or how's that going to work into my eat schedule. We just don't realize how much of our life is kind of centered around food. I mean, when you think about it, anytime you do something social, it's let's meet for a drink, let's meet for appetizers, let's have dinner, let's go to lunch.
Yes.
And when you have dietary restrictions that are, imposed or self-imposed, that can be challenging.
It can be challenging. But, I think for your journey that you've had so far, I feel like it has to go in stages. So, too, like you have to get to the point where you're comfortable with what you're doing, you're feeling better, and then you can tackle the next part of that journey, which is maybe, like you said, social situations or,
being a little
out.
more flexible, I think is the word I was looking for, but flexible. And I think, going into what I do with skin is when I tell somebody, what's your dairy intake? What's your refined sugar intake? Because those are usually the two biggest demons to skin health. And, gluten is too, with eczema and different things like that. But, when you say that to somebody, they're just like, oh, I have to cut coffee and, my Frappy and the milk product that I put in there and ice cream and, it sounds very scary. But I think when people kind of tackle one thing at a time and kind of, replace it with something else, it makes it more doable. And then when you start to see the positive effects of it, and it doesn't happen overnight. Some people it can take a couple of months. Some people it might be within weeks because they're so toxic and whatever that's, inflaming. I think, if we can kind of look at it as it's just one day at a time, one step at a time.
Right.
And when they start to see the benefits, whether they feel better or their skin looks better and healthier and it glows or their acne starts dissipating, then it's like, okay.
They have that self-realization.
Now that's something I can adopt. And I'm going to have maybe some moments where I don't stick to it 100%, but for the most part, the 80-20, I don't know what that's usually a healthy balance. It makes it so they see the reward in treating their bodies differently and thinking of their skin as part of their body.
Right.
I think so many people don't kind of make that connection, that it is so much and the gut is the skin is a mirror into your gut health. I mean, it is what everyone sees and it's a direct reflection of what's going on inside, and so much of it is predicated by the health of your gut. And so that's where nutrition with your field is just huge.
So in your practice, which if you guys could see this space, it's so cozy and lovely. I wish you could all be in here with us. But
thank you.
What is kind of your primary focus when it comes to skin? I mean, I know you're very passionate about overall health. So when you're meeting with people, and what's kind of your mantra? What's kind of your purpose with your business?
I really want to teach people about skin health, about their skin health. So usually when I see somebody the first time and get to know them, I ask them, what are your skin concerns? What conditions are you dealing with? What are you using right now? What is it you want to see? Because everybody has a different goal. So it's important for me to understand their goal, their lifestyle, budget, things like that. I try to kind of feel that out so I know how far we can take it, in terms of complexity. I think skincare regimen is really where I try to focus. A lot of people want to get a quick peel, get a facial, and just assume that that's going to change it all in one treatment. And my idea is to build a relationship with my clients so that it's a comfortable space for us to go back and forth and find what works for their skin. And it doesn't have to be this crazy expensive, complex regimen for everybody. Everybody's skin is different and everybody has a different, some people say, Steph, I just am not going to use all that. I barely wash my face before I go to sleep at night. And then that's when I kind of go, okay, this is where, because there's so many options that can be helpful. And then when I have somebody that has really problematic acne, then that's when I tend to try to delve a little bit, and I'll say you need to go back to your nutritionist or your physician, but you might want to really look at your dietary, because that can greatly help with our topicals in getting this under control so that you feel better. Because I really, at the end of the day, want people to understand how to care for their skin on their own. Because what's most important is their daily and nightly regimen. And I'm just sort of somebody to help guide them when we need to make some tweaks, and somebody to kind of add to what they're doing on a daily to enhance it, yes, or to maybe take it up a level so we can get to another whatever we're doing. And so I guess that's why I love being in my own practice, because then I have the luxury of having that extra time. And being in this private space, it creates a little bit more of an intimate, cozy atmosphere for people to just kind of, let it go and say what we, because, when people's skin has an inflammation or acne or something that's upsetting them, or they feel not good about the way they're aging, it really affects everybody, like, internally so much, and just their whole attitude, their confidence level. I see so many young teenagers with really bad acne, and I really think so much of it's their diet. But
sure.
And the stress of being a teenager in today's, I couldn't do it. I don't know how they do it with social media and posting photos of each other. I mean, it's just, there's so many challenges there. But I want people at the end of the day to walk out and feel good. Sure. And feel like, okay, I've got something I can tackle, I can do this, and I've got somebody that's going to cheer me on. And when it doesn't work, then I always tell people, don't suffer in silence. Call me back, email me, text me, come back in, bring me what you're using, because, there's not a cure-all, and there's not an instant regimen. And so that's why when people ask me, well, is this product better than that? Well, it depends on your skin.
And how it reacts to it.
Yeah. Because something that's supposed to be great for this, you may try it and your skin reacts negatively to it. Then we got to try a different route.
I think it's interesting. I'm sure you can tell, like, again, what people are eating probably their stress levels have a huge impact on their
Absolutely.
health. And probably with kids, you can see it the most. But even I think a lot as adults, most of their skin issues are probably from food. And they probably feel like horrible otherwise too.
They do.
And do you try to address it with them most of the time?
I do.
Yeah.
And I have to be gentle, because I am not, a certified nutritionist. I am not a physician. But I do feel like, as a skin health professional or as an esthetician, that it is our job to at least make them aware and mindful, and maybe give them a little bit of information that then they can go and research. I mean, we see it so much just in the media now. I mean, the health and wellness industry was like, grossed over trillions, multi-trillions of dollars last year.
Yes.
So it's a fast-growing industry, but as you know, there's so much information to sift through, and the same with the beauty industry in terms of skincare products, makeup, this, that. And I feel like a lot of skincare companies are now trying to focus on supplements and vitamins and collagen boosters that you internally take, and vice versa. A lot of those vitamin supplement companies are now developing skincare. So we definitely are seeing that we're...
crossover.
Yes. The crossover is there. And I think it's only just begun. And there's been a huge boom in it in the last few years. And so I don't think that it's out of school, really, to at least mention it.
Sure.
And usually the people that do cut dairy,
you see a huge change.
I see a huge change within a month. And that's usually, the average of a skin cycle is 27 to 42 days-ish, depending upon your lifestyle and where you're at age-wise and genetics and all of that. But, and then sun protection is everything. Environmental, I should say. It's not just the UVA, UVB, and now the infrared, but it's lights inside. It's so much of the pollution that we're exposed to, the air we breathe, the toxicity that we're just regularly, just things we put on our body, and they get absorbed in the skin in less than 30 seconds. And so much gets filtered through the bloodstream, and that affects your skin. It affects your internal, it affects everything. It's all
cyclical.
Yeah.
So what's your, how do you, so when it comes to products, I mean, like you said, there's 10,000 bajillion products out there. So
many products.
And someone's looking at, I'm going to buy this facial cream, or I'm going to buy this body lotion. Since so much is absorbed through our skin, is there some things that you are just like, I'm not a big fan of those. Those are going to cause like estrogen disruptors. And I've heard like all of this stuff out there that people's skin is absorbing through when it comes to product, body lotion, facial creams,
and I think we're really hearing more about that. And myself, I'm even kind of doing a checklist in just my own personal, when you think about your body lotion, your deodorant, maybe things that you don't invest as much money in the quote unquote expensive stuff that's for your face. Because we're all so hypersensitive about about anti-aging and looking younger and the fountain of youth, and there's such a pressure to not look your age.
Right.
You know,
and it can be highly chemical when you're trying to do all those
basically
things.
not age, which is, it's going to happen. Yeah. We're all going to age. I mean, we're all going to get some lines and wrinkles, and hopefully you get them from smiling and laughing too. Right. But usually when I get questions about topical things, it's being mindful of parabens. Mm-hmm. Synthetic fragrance tends to be a huge one that just eventually bombards people's skin, and really anything that disrupts the outer moisture barrier, which is what keeps the bad stuff out and keeps the good stuff in. And it's just really, I mean, it's our protectant. That's the number one job of the skin, is to keep those bad toxins and harmful organisms out and protect our insides and protect the structure and integrity of our skin. So when people ask me, I never want to speak ill of another brand, because I think there's so many that are decent, but then there's a lot that aren't. But I want to make people mindful that just the most expensive product, or what's being promoted in Sephora or Ulta or any other major department store or on television with a celebrity endorsed commercial, doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. Look at your ingredient deck. Look for things that are chemicals. If you can't pronounce it and you Google it and it's some kind of a chemical that has a lot of side effects, then I probably wouldn't recommend it. I think really inflammation leads to aging, just to simplify it real simple. And so that includes lines and wrinkles and laxity, as well as uneven skin tone. So we want to be nourishing the skin from the outside, just like we want to nourish our body from the inside. And you will look and feel healthier, and your skin will look radiant and glowing, and your lines and wrinkles won't be so pronounced if we're putting good, healthy product, which is why I really only choose products that are no parabens, that have a botanical base, that to my knowledge and to the best of my expertise are not going to be harmful to the skin. And I've worked with a lot of medical grade where you're using things like tretinoin, and you're using hydroquinone at high doses. And I won't name those lines, but we all know what they are. And I think over time, they just really disrupt the outer moisture barrier. And when that happens, think of it like cracks in a screen door. And so those harmful toxins and organisms are getting in there, and eventually the body just can't fight it anymore. So it gives up, and then it leads to things like, I see so much dermatitis in women. And when I say dermatitis, it's kind of a general term for any kind of an inflammatory rash that persists, and it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's not really acne, but it kind of looks like it, but it's itchy and it burns, and it just goes on and on and on. And a lot of that is the moisture barrier has been disrupted. That's when you have to wean off all of those topical prescriptions, even, the rosacea creams. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for prescriptions, but I think long-term use of anything like that, we're better off trying to help our bodies, our skin, help itself. Right. And that can really come from gut health.
Right. I was going to say, it goes right back to your food.
Yeah. I mean, I know we just keep going back to it, but really it's the root of everything. And I think we can help ourselves a lot and avoid expensive treatments and foreign things being put in our faces and whatever. And I have no judgments on those. I mean, if people do what they want to do, and there's a place in the market. But I think for the most part, you can really maintain a good, healthy looking skin at any age if you take care of your body as a whole entity. And we are fueled. I mean, food is thy medicine. We are fueled by our nutrition.
Absolutely.
And so your skin health is a direct
it's a direct It's a direct reflection of what you're putting into your body, for sure.
I mean, and you need to look at it and listen to it. So if things are going on, then that typically is going to point to something going on inside.
Right. What has been your biggest skin challenge for you have beautiful skin.
Well, so do you. Your skin is just radiant and glowing. What's my personal, you mean, for my own skin?
Been, like, when you kind of think about what we just kind of talked about when it came to food and stress and sleep, and when in your life do you think you had the biggest stress or the biggest skin challenges, and maybe how that can be reflective of what you were doing at the time?
Oh, well, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was such a nightmare, but I know that it was my late 20s, and I was working a couple jobs. I was auditioning. I was finishing my 2-year stretch at the Meisner Conservatory. I'm driving around in crazy traffic, living out of my car and taking changes of clothing, because you didn't have time in LA traffic to get all the way home and then get to your next gig. And being under immense stress from that, not having immediate families surrounding me, even though I called my mom and dad probably daily, maybe my mom more than once a day, bless her heart. And I was in an unhealthy personal relationship at the time. And so all of those things firing at you at the same time, I was getting like acne, rashing, horrible skin, and I had not gone to aesthetic school yet. So I was going, and this is why I understand people that come to me and said, I've tried everything, Stephanie. I've tried this line, I've tried that one, and they're naming decent lines and some not so decent. I mean, they're naming, they've gone every gamut.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of that has to do with it's because you're not getting to the root cause. And when I got out of my unhealthy relationship and I finally graduated school and I caught my breath a little bit, it was interesting how my skin kind of just miraculously cleared of that weird whatever. It's probably a dermatitis of some kind. But I mean, thousands of dollars later, I'm sure, with
all the things that you tried and trying to make it better.
And the thing is, you try them, and a lot of us get super frustrated when we are dealing with a skin challenge, is you try it for a week or two and you're like, it's not doing anything. And so you throw it out and you go to the next beauty counter or the next person, what are you using for your skin? And then you buy the whole line, or you go online and buy it.
People, I've been guilty of that.
We all are. We're human. And you always think, well, what they're doing looks great, so I'm going to try it.
Right.
I get it.
Yes. So why would someone want to see an esthetician over someone at a beauty counter at a department store? What makes your profession and what you do stand out over Sephora or Ulta or those places that most commonly people go?
Yeah, and I have nothing against, because I used to work at those counters and all of that, and they're quite knowledgeable in certain things, but I think they're a little bit more product trained driven, and I think it's kind of like, if I want to learn real intricate knowledge and get deep about my nutrition, I'm going to go to a professional that's their forte, that's their expertise and what they focus everything on. And so with your skin health, I think it's just like anything else. If you're going to go to your cardiologist because you're having heart issues, if you're having skin issues, it's great to go to somebody that their main focus is the skin, and hopefully they are keeping up with their knowledge and their training, and they want to give you the best knowledge they can about how we can treat our skin, because it really is, it's an organ and it's a system in our bodies that's extremely important.
It's a big organ.
More than
it's
just
a huge organ.
It's so large, yeah. And I think it's a little different than when you go to a counter and they're trained really specifically in their product. And yes, they get a little bit of skin health, but it's just kind of hitting the surface, because their main thing is, well, what's in your product and how is it manufactured and what is it supposed to do? And that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're there, is to sell product. I would rather work with you, and if you say to me, Stephanie, I can't purchase everything that maybe you might recommend. I'd rather give you some samples, some complimentary samples, or say, okay, let's just take out this item. We're going to keep these two things, but let's maybe try to incorporate this because that's where we're missing the link. And try to work with maybe somebody, because I understand you invest a lot of money in skincare. And some people are like, I just can't throw that away. It was, a $400 cream, or, I hear these crazy prices. And so I say, okay, let's use that up, but let's try to incorporate this. Or unless I just think it's something that is detrimental, then I might say, I really wish you wouldn't use that. Like, let's not make the skin more angry, and we need to stop using that. But usually what I'm telling people is, please use a sunscreen.
Please do that. If there's that's your number one.
If there's
product.
one thing you can do when they come to me, which a lot of people come to me for aging, which I get it. No one wants to age. But when I say, I sound like a broken record, but please wear sunscreen every single day, 365 days a year, whether you're inside your house or not. They look at me sometimes like that is ridiculous, but it's true. You can help yourself so much by wearing
I feel
it.
like people in Iowa fight it. I don't know why.
Do
you feel that way too?
They do, because by golly, in LA, when it's 75 and sunny almost all the time, but you see women with gloves and hats and scarves and big, huge sunglasses, because they're doing things to get rid of hyperpigmentation and lines and wrinkles, and so they want to preserve it.
Yes.
So they're coated.
That's interesting. As far as schooling, I know you went to school. Do you want to talk about like what school length of time, and then also how you keep up on your education and what that's involved?
Yeah, well, usually, you'll go to a cosmetology school that then has a subdivision of aesthetics. And I believe it's 600 hours. It could be more now. It might be up a ways, because it's been over 15 years since I graduated. Not to age myself, but I'm in my late 40s. It's okay. I've accepted it. And then it's really your responsibility to get out there, and there's lots of aesthetic conventions throughout the year. A lot of my skincare companies that I work really closely with have ongoing, we have webinars now that you can either pay for or are complimentary. You just kind of have to take it upon yourself, because if you don't do it, you're not going to learn it. And then I just read and listen to things. I mean, podcasts. I get on YouTube. I have a few estheticians that are kind of mentors, in my eyes, that I listen to on a regular, or read their blogs. I try to look into what's popular in this field and what people are looking at, and read as much information as I can, even if I might not be personally doing it in my practice anymore. Things like laser, certain chemical peels and things of that nature. But I mean, your basic certification or your license is pretty manageable to get in a fairly short period of time, depending upon if you're going to school all day, or like I had to go a little longer because I could only do the night school. So you only get in so many hours. And but I do think we need better education just for somebody who's coming out of general aesthetic school, because I've mentored a few that have come out and are fresh, and they're ready to learn, but they haven't learned a ton in school. And so I really feel that it's kind of your continuing ed that is what makes And I mean, there's so many huge conventions in Vegas and LA. Chicago is doable for people here in the Midwest, because at least you can drive there if you don't want to fly, and do that cost of that. Minneapolis has some great trainings. So I really have just tried to stay connected in that way. I just went, Epiant Skincare had their advanced continuing training in Chicago in September. And so I go to those things and just soak it in.
Soak it all in.
Right, like incredible. I'm a big note taker, and then the beauty is now with technology is we can save webinars.
Oh, sure.
And so I will save them on my iPad, and then as I'm getting ready in the morning, doing my makeup and whatever my skincare routine is, I'll listen. And I think listening to information over and over and over again, you keep soaking in more and more and more.
Absolutely.
So,
and you need to be licensed in the state of Iowa, correct? Is that in all states in the United States?
yes.
Or? Yes. Okay.
And then there's varying things that you can or cannot do with your licensure within that, and that varies state to state.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And so, like, when I came back in 2007 to Des Moines, I was able to be grandfathered in laser certification with being under a medical and MD.
Oh, sure.
But I believe since I did that in the last few years, that has changed. So I think you need to be an RN, a medical professional, or go back to school and get an additional, I think it's an RN. I think you have to go to nursing school now. Because there's just been so much with lasers,
right,
and malpractice with lasers, and things that have occurred negatively with lasers. And it's a powerful tool.
So what kind of things do you offer as far as services? I think most people think estheticians.
Facials, I do a full, and I'm big on a customized facial. So sometimes I'll add light peels. I always do extractions. I know some don't. I always do extractions, which is cleaning out the pores. And I try to do everything with exfoliation, deep cleansing, some kind of a mask, and I really do cater it to the skin that I'm seeing in front of me. So I take quite a bit of time initially in the cleansing process and sort of talking to my client to figure out and to feel and to touch and to see what's going on. I offer dermaplaning, which is hugely popular now. It is really a manual form of exfoliation that, in my opinion, is better for the skin than microdermabrasion. I don't do microderm. I have done microderm in the past. I'm not a huge fan of it personally. I feel like it tugs on the skin, and I think most of my clients are in the aging bracket, and even my younger. You don't want to be doing microderm on active acne. So I choose dermaplaning or light chemical peels for that. I have some medium strength peels that I can do with my licensure without a medical professional. I have done the very deep peels back in the day when I did work in medical aesthetics. But for me, really, it's more about skin health education, getting good, solid facials that do something, that are functional, that aren't just, yes, I try to make it an experience where you're going to feel the therapeutic benefits, but I really do try to gear it towards your skin health. And so that's kind of why I've aligned myself with companies that I retail their product that have a lot of education in protocols and ways to change up your facial protocols depending upon the client. And if I'm on an acne regimen, a hyperpigmentation regimen, or just somebody that's just concerned with, aging. And, in terms of how often people come, it can be every 4 to 6 weeks, which is pretty typical if somebody's regular. But you can also do them once a quarter, I tell people. It's based on your budget, your lifestyle, what's going on with your skin. If we're really trying to get acne under control, that's really the only condition that I'm like, you really do need to, in the beginning at least, come in more frequently. So we can because you can't extract everything in one sitting. It's just not safe. It's not good. It's too much, and it's very uncomfortable for the client. And we have to be really mindful about mindful picking. So I'm usually educating a lot of my people that are pickers, which is most of us, is we have to do responsible picking.
Gotcha.
And so I try to educate in responsible picking of blemishes or things, and to get out of your 20 magnifiers, because if anybody's up in your face that close, they're too close.
That is very true.
Because I think sometimes we start picking at stuff that just leave it alone.
Yes.
It's better left untouched, and it will just dissipate on its own, and you won't be left with the scarring.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Because that's a huge one. A lot of people think, I'm only talking about pigment from sun damage. No, I'm talking about a lot of that purpley brown when people have had inflammatory scarring from acne picking.
Oh my, yeah.
And a lot of people get it, especially
so true.
As women, we get the hormonal stuff that's just a real bummer.
Yeah.
And those they fester under there, and so there's treatments that you can put on there topically to help shrink that inflammation and help with the redness so that it doesn't leave such a residual mark. But those are the ones that we cannot responsibly pick them. They need to be left alone because they will get worse, and they tend to spread, and they're painful. And so I tell people, leave them alone. Mm-hmm. You'll thank me later, because most people, unless they're up in your face and touch, they don't even know that they're there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You just can feel it.
Exactly. And I'm not saying it's not horrible, and I know they're a bummer, but those are the ones that aren't meant to come out like another blemish is. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are meant to stay and let the body do its inflammatory response naturally. And give it a little topical care to kind of help expedite the process. Drink a lot of water, get better sleep.
Watch what you're eating.
Watch what you're eating.
Yes.
Because it is a wives' tale to say that, oh, I had a piece of chocolate, now I have a pimple. I mean, I don't know that it's that
directly connected.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if you've had a week of just eating poorly and staying up too late and drinking too many cocktails every night, then your skin might look a little ravaged the next day.
It's so true.
Or the next week.
It's so true.
So
yes.
Yeah.
I love your I just like how you try to do the whole health experience when it comes to people's skin, and I very much appreciate that, because a lot of people can go into a salon and have that treatment done too, and I've never had that experience with another professional like I had with you. So that's why I wanted to have you on
Thank
here.
you so much. That means so much to me, because I really do feel like I'd rather have you go off and be able to treat your own skin. It makes me so happy to see people like, oh my gosh, my skin is cleared up, or I feel like I have my glow back. I'm not so bummed out about lines and wrinkles. I look healthier, and I see it in clients, and that's really... it's not about just selling people products and treatments. It really isn't, because especially if it's not doing anything.
Right. Yeah, that's how we're similar, because as a dietitian too, I don't want to babysit you with your nutrition journey for the rest of your life. I want to teach you.
Give you the tools.
Yes, how to do it yourself.
And then I'm here just to kind of be that guide when you need it. And if you want to keep coming to me for facials, obviously, it's my business, and I love to have you and see you. And a lot of people just like the benefits. They like the overall. I think we're also in a time, and maybe you notice this too in your field, people are a little more focused on self-care, or at least trying to be more mindful of self-care and me time. And some people like to go get a pedicure, and that's their me time, or a massage. And then I have others that are like, no, it's my facial. So,
it's important. It's an important
you can prioritize what's important to you.
Absolutely. Well, for those listeners that are here in Des Moines, I will put all of your contact information in my show notes.
I appreciate that.
Yes, I hope people tap into your services, because they're amazing. And for all of you that are not in Des Moines, you're missing out, because Stephanie is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I have a couple hard questions to ask you at the end. Everyone always tells me these are the hard questions, which I think is hilarious.
Okay.
But why don't you share with me some of the foods that you enjoy?
I love sweet potatoes. I know this sounds crazy, but my big salad that I have for lunch and dinner, I absolutely crave it. I love it. It's a mix of greens and tomatoes and cucumber and celery and cabbage. I know that sounds nutty. And I make this red pepper. It's kind of a hummus, but it doesn't have chickpea in it. It's basically red pepper with nutritional yeast and some seasonings. Ooh. And I dip veggies, or I sprinkle it along with some lemon water as my salad dressing. Yum. It is so yummy.
I just discovered nutritional yeast.
Love
it's delicious.
Love it.
And it has protein in it.
Totally.
It has really, I was shocked.
Yep.
Yeah. That was a new one for me as a dietitian.
So those are some of my faves. And I do love chocolate, but I try to stick to like dark chocolate and healthier options. But I don't know what it is about sweet potatoes. I find those curb my sweet tooth, and they're full of vitamin A and full of so many good nutrients, and they're a good starchy vegetable, and
they're delicious.
They're awesome. And I don't put anything on them.
You don't need to.
No.
They are so
I cook them in the
themselves.
oven, and they're just lovely. Love them.
They are. They're amazing. Beverages that you enjoy?
Water. I drink only really water. Sometimes a protein shake that's vegan. And what else? I pretty much drink water, and I like lemon in there. I always start my day with warm lemon water before I work out. And that's a great kind of, I learned that just in kind of my food journey and my health journey of just hydrating first thing. Do I enjoy a cup of coffee? Yes, I do. And I do non-dairy creamer, and sometimes, I like to put cinnamon. Cinnamon's one of my favorite seasonings of all time.
Too.
Love cinnamon.
Yes.
And I juice usually in the morning, so I'll do a juice. And it's usually mostly greens, celery, cucumber, kale, spinach. I might add like a half a pear. Pear's really good for wrinkles, by the way.
It
Pears. That gives me enough kind of a sweet, but yet it's my juice, and I don't typically always drink all of it, but I like that to start my day.
Tell me why pears are good for your skin.
They have a certain vitamin. I'm going to have to go back to my notes, but I know it helps with nasolabial folds, which are the little lines around
your mouth and nose area.
And it's a certain mineral.
You'll have to get back to me.
I will. But pears are really good, and obviously the highest antioxidant with the lowest amount of sugar is going to be your dark berries. So I tell people that whether it's for skin concern or not, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, they're all, right? All the berries, the berry family. So if somebody's trying to cut sugar, but they're still keeping fruit sugar, because I always tell people, don't demonize carbs. I mean, a vegan diet is really carb loaded, but it's the quality
of what you're eating. Yes.
So
that's funny. I always tell people that pears and berries and apples are and kiwi are kind of my top four fruits. Because of, I don't know why, because of fiber content, but also lower sugar content.
Yes, but there is a specific, and I can see it in my notes, and I'm trying to remember with pears, but I just remember reading that and going, oh, that's interesting, because I really love pears.
I do.
Especially when you kind of get bored with apple. I think the glowing green smoothie, which I think Kimberly Snyder, she's a guru I follow. But I mean, you can do a glowing green smoothie on a daily, and that's awesome for your skin, for your health. And that you just get your little blender out, put some kale, spinach, water, lemon juice, apple. You can switch up your fruits, add a little cinnamon in there if you want, and drink your green smoothie.
That's probably be better for some people that don't like to eat vegetables. Yes. An easy way to do that.
Agreed.
There's plenty of us that don't eat vegetables.
I know. And I don't know. I love them. I love the crunch and the texture. But I think when you retrain your taste buds, you start to crave that stuff.
You do.
And you like it.
Same way with water. People that don't drink water.
I always have like I always have
you
water.
Have like 2 containers.
I know. I always have water.
It's good.
But to me, and what is it? Half your body weight in water a day is kind of a general, but obviously it depends on your age, your conditions,
working out, exercise,
all of that, how much caffeine you may or may not drink. So
What's some favorite scents or smells that you enjoy?
Well, funny that you mentioned that, because my little side business that I'm embarking upon is creating my own perfumes, which are over here in my
I saw that on your Instagram.
And so I have always been just a fanatic about scents, and I've collected perfumes for years. And so I guess if I had to name certain notes, I like a lot of indie fragrances and things that are just kind of off the beaten path. But I love like patchouli, lemongrass, bergamot. I like vanilla. I kind of like a unisex blend. So I tend to kind of like that spicy with maybe a mid note of some florals in there, which, believe it or not, is in so many perfumes and fragrances. But yeah, I'm a fanatic about perfume. So and fragrance, and using oils that are more of a natural grade instead of getting your synthetic fragrances that you might buy at a department store.
Which causes people to sneeze and have allergic reactions.
And have allergic and skin conditions and things like that. But you can get those from essential oils, as you know, too, if they're not diluted properly. And some people are, I always tell people, be careful with lemon, tea tree oil, and I think actually not so much lemon, but lime. When you get that on your skin externally and you are exposed to UVA and UVB, you can get skin irritations from that and dyspigmentation or hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation. So those are the ones you do need to be mindful of if you're topically applying those at a fairly high strength and then going out
into the sun.
In the sun and the heat. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Favorite colors or colors that you enjoy?
I love this kind of, what do we call this, spa, like sagey green. Mm-hmm. I love kind of a deep, like a velvety purple, like not, I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan. So like anything in like that mystical kind of, she has a lot, I know there's a lot of black, which I don't know that, we could be, that's what, up for debate on whether or not that's a color, but I mean, I like kind of that deep burgundy, deep purple, kind of those like
pretty
earthy.
Kind of goes with your smell, like your scents that you like.
Yes. So I kind of tend to gravitate towards those colors, and those tend to be things that I wear deeper, like teal greens, but that are deeper. I don't know.
Music that you enjoy or things that you like? You like to listen to podcasts. And
I love podcasts, and Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac are my all-time fave. I've loved them since I was like 7 years old. I love all kinds of music, and probably one of my favorite things to do is to go see a concert.
Live music.
Me
too.
Love it.
I love live music.
And I love all different kinds. So that, But I probably would say I'm more of like a classic rock girl.
Gotcha.
But I do love, what do we call that? Coffee house music too.
Oh yeah, kind of like acoustic.
Acoustic, anything with really good deep lyrics. Like I'm a pretty lyric, I really pay attention. Some people are paying attention more to the melody, which I do. But and I think that's why I love Stevie Nicks, is because she's such a poet.
Yeah.
And I love poetry too. So I think that's why I like her so much.
That makes sense.
Because her lyrics, and they always come from something kind of, heart-wrenching and deep. And you're like, oh my gosh, I love this song. It makes me cry. I think I've seen them in concert like 9 times.
Have you?
And
Everyone has a band that they like, or someone that they like love to see.
I would literally pretty much go anywhere. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
And would 70, what brings you joy in life?
My family, my job, making people smile when they leave here, or when people text or write me back or email me and say, I'm loving how my skin looks. I really do. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but I really do. I'm really fueled by that, is by positive feedback and knowing that I'm doing something that's not just me having a job and getting up every day and doing it and making a living, but that it's making a difference in someone. I think that's why I got out of the whole acting industry, is because I could finally focus my attention not on me as the product, as selfish as that sounds, but that's what you are, to focusing on other people and being able to give that to others. And I think as an esthetician, a hairstylist, anybody who deals one-on-one with people and builds relationships, you do kind of become a little bit of a pseudo-therapist too, because you listen to people and they're in a safe space to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you kind of take it in and offer support in that way too. As well as hopefully trying to make them feel better, or walk out of your practice or your salon feeling like, okay, I feel better.
Yeah. Well, I know you did that for me when I came. So.
Thank you.
Yes, that was lovely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for this whole conversation. It was
Thank you
wonderful.
for having me. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, we'll have to do a part 2 or something.
Absolutely.
And continue the conversation about skin and maybe acting and all that stuff.
All of that weird, crazy, this weird journey, this crazy journey that I was on, and now I'm back to, normal reality.
Whatever that is, right?
Quotes, I say. I'm being facetious, but yeah. I don't know that I'll ever be totally normal, but yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, we all have our thing. We all dance to our own beat, right?
We do. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Stephanie. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate her sharing her own journey and experiences with me when it came to stress, her skin, her gut issues. She truly is a special type of esthetician. I mean, she knows her stuff for real, and she gives great facials. If you're in the Des Moines area and want to connect with her, go over to the show notes, or if you just have questions about skin health or maybe even becoming an esthetician, you can find her contact information there. Remember to be great always, find the joy in each day, and to start a conversation that truly matters.